As we begin to read this psalm, Psalm 23, understand that shepherding can be a dangerous vocation. The sheep that look warm and fuzzy and are easy to pet sometimes, they look like dinner to lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. The Old Testament story tells a story about David as a young boy, and it tells of him actually killing a lion that was trying to get his sheep. It tells of him actually killing a bear that was trying to get his sheep. Most of us don't know much about lions and bears and tigers. We might not also know that much about sheep. I'm just as happy to know less about lions and bears and tigers. I wouldn't be happy to encounter one. How would you feel if you looked up and there was one in your yard? Maybe a little afraid, maybe a little fearful, maybe a little taken back, a little shock. But David, as a young boy, stood his ground when he faced this fear. David stood his ground when he faced a bear. He stood his ground when he faced a lion. And he fought them. As it turned out, he was the one left standing, according to those Old Testament stories, when the battle was over. But it could have gone the other way. David risked his life to protect the sheep that he was watching. And they weren't his sheep, they were his father's sheep. Out of that experience, David writes this psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. The psalm for today for the people that are gathered today. The United Church of Christ has a vision of a just world for all. In this world where all are welcomed, where everyone is loved and justice is inherent. The three great loves is the denominational's opportunity to express how our love for our neighbors, how our love for children, and how our love of creation work together to address the inequities that exist right now in our current world. Through the lenses of these three great loves, the United Church of Christ tells the story of how we are impacting and we need to be transforming the world, united in a common purpose and mission. One by one, we are focusing on each of the three great loves, not only in our association, but also in our conference, and we're invited to as a church. Our expression of love is and will be our living testimony. What would it look like if our entire church, our entire congregation was committed to this shared vision? How much impact could we have if it worked as one on the mission that mattered? Today is Earth Day, but shouldn't every day be Earth Day? And shouldn't every day be Love God's Children Day? And shouldn't every day be Love Your Neighbor Day? It is and it should be. Together, we can make a difference in this world. Together, we can change the world by sharing and expressing love. United in God's Spirit and inspired by God's amazing grace, we can love all, we can welcome all, and we can seek justice for all, for the children, for our neighbors, and for creation. We can. The United Church of Christ says we should, and we will, and we must make a difference. Let our love light the way to a better world, a more just world for children, for our neighbors, and for creation. Let us listen to an example of what Jesus thought and shared what love is. 1 John chapter 3, 16 through 24. This is how we ought to love. Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and our sisters. But if a person has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, and that person doesn't care, how can the love of God remain in him? Little children, let's not love with words or speech, but with action and truth. This is how we will know that we belong to the truth and reassurance our hearts in God's presence. Even if our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our hearts and knows all things. Dear friends, if our hearts don't condemn us, we have confidence in relationship to God. We receive whatever we ask from him because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. This is his commandment, that we believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love each other as he commanded us. The person who keeps his commandment will remain in God, and God remains in him. And this is how we know that he remains in us, because of the Spirit that he has given to us. Our epistle reading for today. As we transition to our gospel, I've got a question. How well do you and I understand sheep and sheep behavior? Anybody had a couple of courses in agriculture and sheep? I found these interesting. Did you know that sheep are social animals? Now, they're not necessarily on social media, but they are social animals. Community is important to them. They are known as a flock or a herd, and they travel together. Sheep, by nature, are followers, and they actually seek out some form of leadership. Sheep are docile, and they're easily trained, easily taught. Sheep have good memories. The more pleasant or positive memories they have, the healthier and secure they are, and the better wool they produce. Just think about that. If they have, if you count sheep as you sleep, you're supposed to get better sleep. But if a sheep has better memories, it has better wool. Did you know that sheep like routine? It is so important to be patient when introducing something new to the flock or to the herd. Sheep's reactions are predictable, so once you learn a herd's reaction, you can actually use that in a positive way. And sheep react negatively to loud noises. Sounds about right, doesn't it? Sheep tend to move in the opposite direction, though, of their handler. So shepherding a flock is hard work. Did you know that sheep move best when not afraid? So it is so important to work slowly and calmly and keep fear down. Sheep will move towards other sheep. Another reason why sheep are made to be in herds or flocks and not living lives of solidarity. Sheep have no depth perception. So it is vital to remember that shadows, dark surfaces, and water are issues that create fear. Sheep fear new visual objects, so introduce new things very slowly. And sheep can also be destructive to their actual environment. So the shepherd needs to find ways to help them not destroy the world that they live in. Let us read more about sheep in our gospel reading today, found in John 10. I am the good shepherd, Jesus says. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. When the hired hand sees the wolf coming, he leaves the sheep and runs away. That's because he isn't the shepherd. The sheep aren't really his. So the wolf attacks the sheep and scatters them. He's only a hired hand, and the sheep don't matter to him. Again, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I give up my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that belong to this sheep pen. I must lead them too. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. That is why the Father loves me. I give up my life so that I can take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I give it up because I want to. I have the right to give it up, and I have the right to take it up again. I received this commandment from my Father. Wow, this morning we're really heavy on the metaphor of sheep and the shepherd. Hence, the Good Shepherd Sunday, the fourth Sunday of Eastertide. This metaphor that the psalm invokes and that the John passage paints is that we are the sheep and that God, the Lord, is the Good Shepherd. We are the sheep and the Lord is our shepherd, and Jesus is the Good Shepherd, and our lives of faith daily are often lived out in relationship to the way of a flock of sheep and how a shepherd interacts and moves with the flock. Just for fun, if you were going to utilize a different animal metaphor that describes your faith, your relationship with God, and or perhaps your faithfulness on your faith journey, other than sheep, what would that metaphor be? God is the gardener, and we are the snails or the slugs, and slow is our journey of faith. God is the desert, and we are the camels. Our faith is dry, but we are still traveling towards a more beautiful relationship with God. God is the homeowner, and we are the cat. Skeptical, interested, but from afar. God is the Sahara, and we are the white rhino, almost extinct. God is the master, and we are the dog, loyal. God is the green pasture, and we are the rabbit, energetic. While all of those metaphors are interesting, nothing works quite as well as the Lord is my shepherd, and we are the sheep. And as the sheep, we are depending on and trusting the shepherd every moment of every day. Besides, it would cause a whole lot of anguish, a whole lot of heartache with the sheep if we attempted to rewrite the 23rd Psalm and the words of Jesus found in John 10. Face it, the Lord is my shepherd is iconic and transcendent. The Lord is my shepherd is canonized and bona fide. The Lord is my shepherd is foundational and traditional. The Lord is my shepherd works for us every day of our lives, even the days after we have died. I find it interesting. Almost every family I meet with to plan a funeral, I will ask, are there any passages of Scripture you as a family want to hear? Almost 100%, it's always the 23rd Psalm. They would like it read either in the funeral or they would like it read at graveside. But I often wonder if the person we gather to say goodbye to actually lived John 10 every day. What do I mean? I mean the person we are remembering experienced the Lord as their shepherd. The shepherd led them through life. The shepherd provided for them through life. The shepherd comforted them and walked with them even through the valley of the shadow of death. But did this person we memorialize understand and live faithfully the words of the Good Shepherd? Did they understand sacrifice? Did they understand unconditional love? Did they understand the life and cost of discipleship that Jesus calls us into? Did they even consider what it means to lay down one's life for another? In our passage, in John 10, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Have you and I ever laid down our lives for someone other than ourselves? Do we have that much humility? Do we have that much compassion? Are we that Christ-like? Do we even know what it means? The New Testament was written in Greek, so it is important to understand that the word that is used here for good in the Good Shepherd is kalos, which means good in a lovely sort of way. In his commentary, The Gospel of John, William Barclay replaces this metaphor with a different metaphor that might help us move a little bit further down the road this morning. The metaphor that helps us understand it and live it a little more faithfully and authentically. Barclay changes the term the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd, Jesus says, for our sake this morning, to the good doctor. It has a quaint ring about it. It was not uncommon many years ago to hear that phrase. Oh, there's the good doctor. The good doctor is here. The good doctor will see you now. It was because of the personal attention that doctors gave in those days. They made house calls, often after the sun had gone down. They carried a little black leather bag with a stethoscope and other items. They also carried with them medications. You didn't have to go to the pharmacy. The good doctor had what you needed in that bag. They would take your temperature. They would listen to your heart and lungs and tell you this is what you need to do to make you feel better. Can some of us remember the good doctor? Anybody? Everybody have a house call? Yeah. We have good doctors today. Not many of them make house calls anymore. Sometimes it wouldn't be the best use of their time. But the good doctor today has healing power far beyond that of the good doctor who used to make house calls with that little black bag. The good doctor today can use CAT scans and MRIs and a host of other tools to figure out what is really going on with us. 50 years ago, doctors did exploratory surgery to find out what was wrong. Young people today rarely hear that phrase. It still happens some, but exploratory surgery was a common thing 50 years ago. Do you know what exploratory surgery actually means? It means that the doctor doesn't really know what's going on inside your body, but will open you up and look around. Maybe he'll figure it out if he opens you up at the right spot, right? Thank God that good doctors today have a little bit more imaging tools and diagnostic skills than good doctors of yesterday. There are different kinds of good doctors, but they all have one thing in common. Good doctors are devoted to helping those who actually need help and healing and need to feel whole again. They give themselves to the care of their patients. I happened to run across a doctor's story in an old Reader's Digest. Abridged, unabridged, it doesn't matter. It was a Reader's Digest magazine. Her name is Adele O'Sullivan. She practiced medicine in a clinic for the homeless in Phoenix, Arizona. But lots of homeless people never visited her clinic, so she went to the soup kitchens, and she went to the shelters, and she went to the underpasses and to the communities of homeless tents where folks lived. She would always say, the good doctor is in. Oh, I should also mention, she's nun. She is a nun who took a vow to serve God in the most dedicated way. Her love for the needy came because she had a love for Jesus. The good doctor learned her craft at the feet of the good shepherd. And like Adele O'Sullivan, Jesus had a special place in his heart for folks who are voiceless and powerless and marginalized and who are poor and sick and lonely and hurting. She loved the sheep she encountered, and she laid down her life for them the same way Jesus calls us to love the sheep we encounter also. It was Jesus who said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Not many of us know a shepherd today. Even fewer of us have actually tried to raise sheep. Sheep, of course, are easy to love from a distance. They aren't easy to love up close. They look cute as a button with their fuzzy wool coats, warm and fuzzy and friendly. That's a sheep for you, but a sheep can be maddening. They can charge at you if they feel startled. They also, as many farmers say, they're dumb as dirt. Sheep seem always to be able to find a hole in the fence to get out, but they never can find that hole to get back in. The whole flock would follow the leader off of a cliff. It isn't quite as easy to love sheep when you have to deal with them day by day. Just ask a shepherd. At least that's the impression that I get from people that I've talked to that have raised sheep for show and 4-H or FFA. I guess that sheep are a little bit like homeless people too. Homeless people are easier to love from a distance. They're hard to love up close. The story about Dr. O'Sullivan went on to tell about a homeless man who apologized when she raised his shirt to listen to his heart and lungs with her stethoscope. He was humbled, and he told her, "Ma'am, I haven't had a bath in 2 days." And she knew that was a lie. It could have been 2 weeks or it could have been 2 months. But the good doctor told him it's okay. It is okay. And she went about her business of diagnosing the issue and offering him help and healing and wholeness. Here is some good news for us today. Jesus is a good doctor. He loves us even when we smell bad. Not from afar, but intimately in our lives. Jesus is a good shepherd. He loves us even when we're as stupid as sheep can be. And we can be that from time to time. God knows us by name. God listens to our prayers one at a time. God offers you and I joy in our journey. God offers you and I redemption from our mistakes. God offers you and I hope for tomorrow, and God offers you and I help for this present day. God offers you and I courage for the struggle of justice and peace. God asks you and I to consider the cost and to be all in our discipleship. In relationship to being sheep and Jesus being the shepherd, this is good news. The shepherd knows us by name and calls us beloved. An interesting fact this morning is that we have the 3 passages, not just the 2. And I want us to see that 1 John is actually the hinge upon the door that both of these other passages can swing on for us this morning. Let us listen to this small but mighty epistle for the words to point the meaning and carry through the life of sacrifice that Jesus lived. Listen again. They're hard words, but they're necessary. This is how we know love. Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Verse 17 is particularly prickly. But if a person has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need and that person doesn't care, how can the love of God remain in him? This is his commandment, that we believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love each other as he commanded us to. The person who keeps his commandments remain in God, and God remains in him. And this is how we know that he remains in us, because of the Spirit that he has given to us. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's hard. It's hard, intentional work, and it takes sacrifice. We have to lay down our lives for someone else and for each other. But Jesus did even more. He said, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Jesus came to die, but he also came to conquer death. His death would have meaningless without his resurrection. He came to die that we might have life, and that we might have life more abundantly. The sheep loving Jesus who loves us even when we smell bad. The sheep loving Jesus who loves us even when we do stupid things. The sheep loving Jesus who calls us to love others in the same way, just as he calls us by name. This sheep loving Jesus who gave himself in service to the undeserving calls us to do likewise. We are invited this week to search our hearts during the coming week to see how Jesus, the Good Shepherd, might be calling us to join his mission to serve those who are in need. We are invited this week to search our hearts during this time to find ways we can follow the Good Shepherd and to put others first and ourselves second. We are invited this week to search our hearts to find ways to lay down our lives for the sake of each other and for others. We are invited this week to search our hearts to find ways to sacrifice. What are we sacrificing? Our wants, so that others might get what they need. The Good Shepherd has set the example, and as sheep in the flock, we come together as people of faith to set a new example of love and sacrifice for the world. The Good Shepherd invites you and I to live every day of our lives of faith with these two bookends. The Lord is our shepherd. We shall not want. And the Good Shepherd invites us to an abundant life of faithfulness as we lay down our lives for others. Be a good doctor to someone. Be a good shepherd to someone. Offer the same love that the good doctor and the good shepherd offers you. Be hope, be love, be peace. Be an agent of God's healing for someone. Let us lay down our lives for someone, anyone, everyone, today and every day. Amen.